Today's guest is passionate about seeing people set free from guilt, shame, and condemnation, and it was love that inspired this passion. But before she experienced that love, her life was filled with emotional and physical pain, feelings of worthlessness, years of abuse, leading to a life of drinking and promiscuity to major health issues that no medication could fix. She will share how God changed her life one day in a hotel room. Hello and welcome to Everlasting Love. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the music that started our program, and we just want you to know that God loves you with an everlasting love. He loves you so much that He sent His Son to die for you. He loves you so much that He's bringing people right now into your life. If there's something going on, if there's anything that we can do to help you, please don't hesitate to call us at 773-286-2171. Please also don't forget about our website at everlastinglovetv.com. We just want you to know that we are here for you, that we love you because Christ first loved us, and so we want to spread His love to you also. We also have a YouTube channel if you're not able to finish watching this program or you'd like to see more programs from us. It's at youtube.com/everlastinglovetv. And we're just so thankful that you're here with us today. Today on our program we have Nicole Kasmer, and we're so happy to have her. She's the founder of Grace Girls Ministry, and she also just has a powerful testimony of God's love and how He transformed her life. We're so thankful to have you, Nicole. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for the honor and privilege it is to be able to share on the goodness of God in my life.
Thank you. You have such a strong testimony, of what God did for you. Just so many things that happened in your life, but God still came through. We're just wondering if you would share that with us, share with our viewers how God just has touched your life and come in and just changed it.
Yeah, I would love to. He's truly turned my entire life around. I've really struggled from a very early age to understand what love is. My parents divorced when I was 2, and my mom moved my brother and I to another state, and my dad moved from where we were to another state as well. So we were in different states from a very early age, and I was separated from my father
So you didn't have that father's love?
I didn't. So I was too young when they divorced to have even understood at that point. You know, I don't have memories of him as my father up to age 2. And so when being separated from him early, I didn't have that interaction with him in my life to understand a father's love. A few years after my mom moved us, she did meet somebody. He was really kind to us. He was kind to my mom. He was kind to my brother and I, and they married pretty quickly after meeting. Within a short period of time of them becoming married, though, he became pretty violent, and I saw a whole other side of him. And on the one hand, he would hug me and show me affection, and then on the other side of him, I would see him abuse my mother, and eventually he would turn his anger towards my brother and I as well. And so it was really confusing to me, because here I have this person who would show me affection, and then I also have a person who was hurting me at the same time and hurting my mother as I watched. And so it was a very confusing message about love.
So was that your idea of what a father was, someone who would hurt you and alternatively love you too?
I would say that was, yeah, definitely, that was my idea of a father. Definitely, that was the portrayal that I got of it, because my natural father wasn't in my life until a couple years later. He didn't come back into my life, and so that's what I experienced as far as love. My mom was very loving, but as far as a father, that's what I started to understand from men in general and a father. So they divorced, thankfully, only a few years after being married. We didn't have to endure that for too long. They divorced, and it was just my mom and my brother and I for a little while, and my biological father did come back in my life. And so I did start to develop a relationship with him. However, that was very inconsistent. There were promises of, you know, I've sent you something for your birthday, and I would run to the mailbox, you know, day after day, and things wouldn't be there. And, you know, it just, there were just a lot of empty promises and disappointments and heartbreaks that went along with that. And he would come into my life for a few months, and then he would leave my life for a year or something like that. So it was just a really inconsistent message that I was getting.
Was God in your life at all in this time? Did you were your parents or your stepfather or mother Christians at all?
So nobody was a Christian. However, when my dad remarried, both of my parents ended up marrying 3 times each.
Okay.
When my dad married his second wife, she was a Presbyterian, and so I did go to church a couple of times with her, and so I did hear the name of God and I heard the name of Jesus. However, I never heard of the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
And so I had a little bit of church, only when I would go visit him in the summers, and very, very, very infrequently as a younger child. But I did, go to church a couple of times. So my mom remarried, and when I was I can't remember the exact age, but she remarried, and the man that she remarried was also very, very kind. And even after they were remarried, he just accepted us, he loved us, he put us into private school, and like he really took care of us. We had all our needs met that, were physical needs, and he was just really kind. When I became a teenager though, he just started looking at me differently. My mom began traveling a lot, and he started developing like unhealthy affections towards me. And he started making advances towards me, and when my mother was out of town. And so when she came back to town, I would let her know, and she either couldn't hear it or believe it because of all she had been through and her disappointments in life, or she just wouldn't. I mean, she just was in a lot of denial about it. She did end up asking him finally, and he denied it. And I just knew that I couldn't stay in that situation anymore. I had to get out. And so I devised a plan, which was a really bad plan, but it was all I could come up with at the age of 16. And that was to get pregnant on purpose and to get married and get out of the house.
Okay.
And so I found somebody who liked my plan, and he was 17 at the time, I was 16. And I got pregnant, and we were married. My mom signed the papers so that we could get married. And I thought at that point, having a husband and having a baby, I would finally have the unconditional love that I had been looking for.
Right.
Unfortunately, I went from a bad situation to a devastating situation. Within months of being married, I discovered that what I thought was protective behavior of my husband was actually controlling behavior, and things escalated. I found out that he was actually bipolar, and he would go into rages, and he developed a meth addiction, which really set off the rages and paranoia big time. So he started going into rages, and I started suffering a lot of abuse. And the abuse that I saw my mother go through was nothing compared to what I was now experiencing. There were several times where I almost lost my life in situations that I found myself in with him. And so one day his mother pulled me aside. I'd actually tried to leave several times, but I came back under threat of my life and the life of family members, and I thought, well.
So what did he say to you that made you think it would be better to stay in this devastating situation than to?
Well, he just basically let me know, like, if you don't come back, then I'll kill your family. Like, I mean, he wasn't like pulling punches with it. It was just very, he just told you how it was. Like, you know.
Okay.
And so you have a decision to make. I really believed him because of the situations and the things that I had been through. I knew he would, I guess I can't say because, he never did it, but I knew that he was very serious about it, and I knew what I had experienced with him.
That he was capable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I always came back. I left several times, but I always came back. And his mother pulled me aside one day when things were getting really, really bad. It was shortly after my third child was born. And she pulled me aside and she said, I am so afraid that my son's going to kill you. And she said, I don't want him to go to jail, and I don't want you to die. And she said, please let me help you. And the thing is that for her to even say that was pretty incredible, because I kept a lot of it hidden. Because you can't really let people in on the abuse you're going through, because it only ends up worse for you. And so I lived a lot of secrecy through the abuse that I went through. And so she did help me. She got him out of the house and gave me money for a plane ticket. And I packed one suitcase and one toy for each one of my 3 kids. I had a 10-month-old, and I had a 2-year-old, and I had a 3.5-year-old. And I got on a plane, and I flew to another state where my mom was living to start my life over.
Wow. So how long were you with him? How long was that period of your life?
It was about 4 years.
Okay. And so for girls that are out there watching and that might be trying to escape other situations and be heading into worse situations, you said in the beginning you thought some of his behavior was protective, but you found out later that it was really controlling. What types of things, I guess, should young women look out for that are signs that it's not that he loves you and cares about you, but it's that he's trying to control you and maybe something worse?
Well, I would say that if there's, you know, I'm trying to think of the different behaviors that started out one way. You know, it started out with little things like the outfits that I wore, or don't wear that doesn't look good on you. And at first you think, oh, he's just trying to help me, you know, dress, you know, what's flattering on me or whatever. But really it was just starting to control my image, the things that I wore. I mean, when we would be at a mall or something, I would think that he would want, you know, his arm around me because he wanted to, you know, like just be proud of me or show affection or whatever. But that turned into, you know, if I even glanced another direction and there was a male there that, you know, then I would just suffer because of it, because he was just convinced that I was, you know, like thinking somebody else was good looking or something. So on the one hand you think, hey, he's saying this is my girl and I'm so proud of her and like whatever, and on the other hand what it becomes is this is my girl, she's my property, and you know, if she looks another direction or if you look at her, at first you think, oh hey, he's protecting me because this person looked at me strange or looked at me wrong, and so he's like telling them you better back off. But and then it turned into, though, it was really just an unhealthy control that was going on. Not that there's a healthy control, but it just turned from what I thought was a protection to really a control.
Control. Yeah.
So it's very subtle at first, is what I would say, and it's just going to be very subtle, but it always escalates.
Did his family have any indication that he was like this? Did they try to warn you or say anything to you? Did anyone try to dissuade you from marrying him?
You know, they really didn't try to dissuade me from marrying him. They actually thought that I was like going to be good for him. He had had trouble with the law since he was quite young. He didn't actually even graduate 9th grade. So he was in and out of jail from the time he was, you know,
young.
Very young, maybe 11 or something. Like he was in juvie and things like that. And with every baby they said, you know, this is going to change him this time, this is going to change him. And it just never did, no.
Okay. Well, at this point in your life, you have 3 children. You have just left a very abusive relationship. Where is God in this for you, and what do you think of him at this time?
You know, God honestly wasn't even in my thoughts. While I was being abused, I did think about God, and I would say in my heart, and I didn't even know it was prayer at the time. I had no understanding or concept that God would even talk to you, because my understanding from my early childhood, having gone to church a couple times, was that God was like out in outer space, and then he had his son who had to die for us because we were bad, and then we would go to heaven one day. And so I didn't have any concept of a Holy Spirit. I didn't have any concept of that God loved us or anything like that. So I didn't even really know that I could even speak to him. But in my heart, during my lowest moments, I would just say, God, if you're real, please don't let me wake up tomorrow, because I just don't think I can get through another day. And every day I would wake up. And so every day I was convinced more and more that God just wasn't real, that this church that I had been to, that was all a lie, and that, you know, there's just no such thing. Either that, or he is out in outer space and he doesn't care about me, and I'm on my own in this earth, and hopefully one day I'll make it to heaven, and who knows what happens then. Like, and so
so he was just like a pie in the sky. It was just
it wasn't even, I never even thought about God after I left, because of so many times thinking in my heart, which I know now was prayer, you know, God, please don't let me wake up. He just became a non-thought. I just didn't think about him anymore.
Wow. But looking back on it now, do you feel that he was present there? I feel that so many people in life, there is that big question, why, if God exists, why do bad things happen? And you're going through such a horrible experience, and now you've come to know him, but do you see God's hand working at all during that time in your life?
I do. Now that I know him personally, I can look back in my life and see his hand in it in many ways. His hand was in that situation through my ex-husband's mother intervening in the situation and helping me. I mean, the fact that his own mother would help help
would
me.
help you, right.
That was Jesus in disguise right there. The fact that I woke up every day, that he didn't let me die, was God's grace in my life, because what would my kids have done? What would have come of my children if I wasn't there? What would have happened to them if I hadn't woke up every day? So there was a purpose for me waking up every day. There were so many times where I should have died. I mean, literally, I remember a time where I was being choked, and I was ready to give up. I was ready to give in. And I literally thought to myself, this is it, I'm done. And my head fell to the side, and as my head fell to the side, I saw the police sirens outside.
Oh, wow.
They were at the house. And so I can look back now, and I can say, God intervened many times. He was there, but I didn't know it, but he was there.
Yeah.
And so maybe he didn't answer the prayer for me not to wake up.
Yes.
But obviously he was there. You know, and so I just became, you know, like hardened to the thought of God, because I didn't see him in any of that then. And so when I left, I found myself in a strange situation, because my abuser was gone, but my identity and my self-worth had been so dramatically changed that I literally didn't even feel human anymore. I would stare in the mirror for hours, just hoping to see somebody look back, and I never saw anybody. I felt like a shell. I felt like there was nothing inside, and I was just this shell of a person that had this flesh, and I was getting through every day, and I was doing what I had to do to take care of my kids, but that there was just nobody in there. Like I couldn't see myself. So I really started becoming my own abuser. I started self-destructing. I started drinking very heavily. I became promiscuous. If any man showed me any sort of affection, if he just said, you're pretty, I was like, he loves me, and I would have sex with him. I would be the girl who would go into the bars alone and leave the bar with somebody. I always, I just was looking for love anywhere I could get it. It was like, the only way I could describe it was like an addict trying to get a fix or something. I needed that fix to know that, hey, you're pretty, or I love you, or just that somebody noticed me and
you're human
and liked me. Yeah, I just needed to just feel something and to feel affection. I just hadn't felt affection in so long. I just had been beaten down and abused my whole life, and never really felt like I had any value at all. And so I really just spiraled downhill in that way. And then I met my husband, my current husband, almost 15 years ago. I met him, and he really came in and was a really safe person. He brought a lot of stability in my life, and he loved my kids. He didn't care about my past. He was just really wonderful to all of us. And we were married very quickly. Within the first year of meeting, we were married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we got married very fast, and my kids started calling him Dad right away. Their biological dad, after I left, had no contact with them at all.
Okay.
We just kind of stayed hidden, and you know, I found out he ended up in prison again, so there was just no contact. And so he became their father, and you know, has helped me raise my children. But about 2 years after we got married, my mother went through a crisis, and she had been the only person in my life that had been consistent, who had stuck with me, who had loved me, who had you know, just even when I was a teenage mom and rebellious and doing all these things, she still loved me through all of it, and she was the one consistent in my life. And she went through a crisis about 2 years after we were married, and none of us knew Jesus, and she didn't see a way out. She had no hope, and she ended up committing suicide.
Oh.
And that was really devastating. It was a devastating loss.
Your one constant, almost how we would consider God. He's the one that loves you through everything. But for you, your mom, she died. That had to be horrific.
It was. And in that, I felt like she died physically, but that day, I died inside. I remember standing in the shower with just the hot water pouring over me, and I remember just the pain, the emotional pain being so severe that I thought to myself, if I don't find a way to turn this off, I won't make it. Nobody can live in this kind of pain. And so somehow I shut down. I don't know how, but I shut down completely. And I stopped feeling. I stopped feeling joy. I stopped feeling sadness. I stopped feeling everything. For a short period of time, I felt suicidal myself. I felt, you know, I would just fantasize about driving my car off the road when I'd be running errands, just because I thought, like, what is all this for? Like, why have I been fighting all this time? Why have I been surviving all this time? Is this what my life is destined for? Just pain and brokenness, like constantly, like because it felt like an abandonment and a rejection as well. It just felt like the ultimate abandonment.
Why did it feel like rejection?
Well, because I felt like at the time, if she loved me, she wouldn't have done that. And so I took it as a rejection that not even I was worth her living for. So it really hit me on a lot of different levels, and it hurt very deeply. So within a few years of me shutting down emotionally, my body started breaking down.
Oh. Did your family notice you shut down emotionally? I feel like your husband, did he notice a difference in you or your children?
You know, honestly, I was really good at being fake. I was really good at being pretending. You know, and just knowing that there was just nothing inside. So I was really good at doing what I had to do to try and mask everything. But I'm sure that you couldn't have not noticed.
Right.
But I was able to function and do what I needed, you know, to do. But it definitely did affect everybody, for sure.
How would you say, I feel that there's so many people walking around like that, your neighbor next door, friends that you have, and you want to reach them, but it doesn't seem you can. How would you say is the best way to relate to someone who seems like they're going through so much and not able to communicate it to others?
I would say that love communicates everything. Love communicates. I don't care what language you speak. If you speak a different language, if you're hurt, if somebody's going through something, just love them. Just be there, hug them. If they don't want to talk, that's fine. Just be the presence of God in their lives. Just be with them. Just hold their hands when they need to cry, and just let them know that you're there for them. Love really is what people need.
Did you feel like you had anyone there at that time to lean on or talk to?
I really didn't. I really felt alone, because I really felt like if I exposed how I really felt inside, then it would be too difficult, like for my husband or you know, my children. They were so young, and I really just felt like once again I just had to pull it together and cope and just keep going.
Do it on your own.
Yeah. I really didn't feel like I had anybody I could talk to, and so I just held it all in. And that's when my body started breaking down.
Yeah.
I went from completely healthy and normal to I started having some pain in my ankle. That was the first thing that I noticed. And I hadn't hit it against anything. I hadn't hurt it in any way, but I was just sitting on the couch, and I just happened to, you know how you kind of like rub your leg, or you just kind of like move your hands or whatever. I happened to run it over my ankle, and I was like, oh, it kind of hurts when I touch that spot. And it was just sort of something I noticed. Well, within a couple of days, I had a lot of difficulty moving both of my ankle joints. Like I had really a lot of trouble walking, like just bending my ankle, you know, back and forth, and then it moved to my knees. It moved to my elbows. It moved through the joints in my body. And I was starting to have to scoot up the stairs to get upstairs and have my kids open even the refrigerator door for me. Like it just, all of a sudden, and my body just started like going crazy. So I went to a doctor, and they recommended x-rays, and we found out that my lymph nodes were swollen. And I ended up being told that it was just an autoimmune process, that my immune system had kicked into overdrive. We did lots of testing, and nobody could give me an accurate diagnosis of what it was. All the like common things were negative. And but they put me on a medication that suppresses your immune system to try and get, you know, things to calm back down and get me out of pain and stuff like that.
Right.
So I started on that medication, and the joint symptoms did relieve, like almost immediately. Actually, within the first couple of days, I felt like I was back to normal in that way. But what ended up happening was, being so suppressed on the medication, I ended up starting to get recurrent vaginal infections. And one of the infection that I got was actually misdiagnosed for 7 months. It was diagnosed as a yeast infection, and it was treated repeatedly. Like every week I was back in the doctor's office. I even ended up at an infectious disease doctor to get treatment for it, and nothing was resolving the infection. And what happened from that is because the infection wasn't resolving and my immune system was suppressed, it was just running rampant through my body. And so what ended up happening is I was in just severe pain. I swelled up. I wasn't able to wear clothes anymore. I had so much heat that it literally felt like somebody was holding a match to that area of my body.
Wow.
It's like being next to, like, if you ever sat by a fire pit and you feel the heat, you feel it hot, but if you want to get up and move, you can move.
Right.
I could not move ever. I couldn't sleep. My hair fell out. I went down to
wow.
like 89 pounds.
You are 89 pounds. Wow.
It was really, I lost all my muscle mass, so 89 pounds looked really,
anorexic.
It looked even, yeah, very much. I mean, you could count every rib. I just was very, very sick. I was going downhill really fast. And
did you think you were dying? Did your family think?
Yeah, actually we did, because we had been to so many doctors and we couldn't get treatment that, I mean, I would literally just shake and shake and shake. Like my kids would try to come and hug me and I would literally just sit and just shake like that. I mean, the pain was so severe. I would take several showers a day. I would use ice packs. I would just do everything I could possibly think of. And just even going to the bathroom, like I would avoid it, so I ended up with bladder infections because if I would go to the bathroom, I would be in excruciating pain just from wiping for like hours. And so I would just amp it up totally. So I ended up at the Mayo Clinic, and I ended up with an accurate diagnosis. I got treated for it was actually a vaginal strep infection. So I was treated for that. And I just want to tell people, in case somebody's struggling with an infection that's not resolving, don't give up. Keep going, you know, for the, you know, somebody has the answer. So anyways, but I also got a devastating diagnosis. And what I found out was that because I had had the infection for so long, that the nerves in that area of my body had been damaged. And I was told that once the nerves are damaged, like when you have nerve damage anywhere in your body, like you can't, there's no new nerves. You cannot get new nerves. That's it. And so the kindest, most caring doctors told me that I had a condition called vulvodynia, and that I would have to have pain medication the rest of my life to manage it. There was no cure.